History is full of famous villains, but what if I told you the most terrifying killers weren't the leaders you know? They didn't give speeches, they didn't rule nations, they simply followed orders, without emotion, without mercy. Tonight, you'll meet the men whose names were erased from history, yet whose hands were responsible for thousands of deaths. Hello, I hope you are well. Today we are going to talk about some killers. Most people have not even heard of them before watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell. Support us by liking, so let's get started. The first human monster we want to introduce is Vasily Blokhin. From his name, it's obvious that Vasily was Russian, but Vasily Blokhin is known in Soviet history as one of the most terrifying and merciless executioners. When World War I began, he joined the Bolshevik movement and became one of the soldiers of these revolutionaries. In other words, one of the very first soldiers of the Red Army. Everyone knows that the Bolsheviks were among the most extreme, violent, and ruthless revolutionaries. They eliminated their opponents in the harshest ways possible. So Vasily, a merciless demon, quickly found a high position. Many of the Bolsheviks' dirty work was assigned to him, because they knew he was loyal, ruthless, and capable of carrying out any mission. In short, with every mission he completed, Blokhin climbed the ladder of power faster and faster. By the year 1921, when the Soviet secret police was formed, the early version of the KGB, they immediately recruited him, because they knew he was extremely valuable for this kind of work. Decades later, his recruitment document was revealed. In it, it was written that the most important reason for hiring Vasily Blokhin was that he showed absolutely no emotions during violent and sensitive tasks. For example, if he was ordered to torture and kill a 12-year-old child, he would feel no sadness. This was written directly in his employment record. That he was not only cold and emotionless, he was also extremely loyal to the state. That made him a very powerful tool, and he was used extensively. 5 years later, in 1926, when Stalin became the #1 power in the Soviet Union, Vasily's reputation reached his ears. Stalin summoned him, gave him a new position, and said, "From now on, you are the chief executor of sentences in the Soviet Union." Execution of sentences meant only one thing: the new name for an executioner. Someone who carried out any sentence that was issued. It didn't take long for this executioner to prove his worth and become one of Stalin's most important agents. Stalin loved people like this, people who carried out orders without asking questions, and Stalin had no tolerance for opponents, political, military, or even ordinary people. He didn't kill them personally. People like this, around him, did. But here's the thing: he's not very well known. Everything is remembered under Stalin's name. Stalin was the one who gave the orders, but Blokhin also had authority of his own. If someone needed to be killed, he could act on his own decision. Historians estimate that the personally issued execution orders for thousands of people, and personally carried them out as well. That if anyone asked why these people were killed, the answer was, this was Vasily's decision, that he doesn't kill without reason, they must have done something. We all know that World War II officially began in September 1939 with Germany's invasion of Poland. That were not defending Germany, but at the same time the Soviets made a deal with Hitler and entered Poland from the east. Yet no one says that the war began with two invasions. Everyone says it began with Germany's invasion of Poland. Anyway, the war began. The Polish people had suffered so much from both of these countries throughout history that they hated both Germany and Russia. For this reason, in the half of Poland occupied by the Soviets, the people resisted much more fiercely. They not only hated the Russians, they hated their ideology as well, which at that time was communism. This is when Stalin summoned Vasily and told him, "Take a short trip to Poland, and put these Poles in their place." Vasily replied, "Of course, rest assured." From the very first day he arrived in Poland, he began his work. That it's hard to believe, but he carried out a massacre so massive that after just 1 month, 857 people were executed. Many of them were personally shot by Vasily himself. Today, this massacre is known as the Katyn Massacre, also called the Katyn Forest Massacre. All of these people were buried in mass graves, and it was made absolutely clear that the Polish population would know what had happened in Katyn. So they would understand. If they resisted, this would be their fate. But here's the interesting part of this story. When this massacre was revealed to the world, the Allies were at war with Germany. The global media was in their hands. All of them reported that the Katyn massacre was carried out by the Germans. Germany had no influence in global media at the time. So this became massive propaganda against Germany. In Allied countries, especially Eastern Europe, this story was spread everywhere. If the Germans enter your country, this will be your fate, the Katyn warning. In short, Vasily Blokhin continued working as an executioner for the Soviet state until 1953. It may be hard to believe, but historians say he personally fired at least 700 final shots. That he is even recorded in the Guinness Book of Records as the person who committed the most killings by a single individual. Some people might say, what about the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima? That was mass destruction. But this man personally fired at least 700 execution shots. Imagine doing that, one after another. For the second evil human in history, we go to Croatia. To meet this man, Ante Pavelić. After World War I, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, a new kingdom was formed in the Balkans called the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. But this kingdom had a fierce opponent. This man he was an extreme Croatian nationalist and believed Croatia must be independent. He did not want to be part of Yugoslavia. However, King Alexander I of Yugoslavia had such strong support that Pavelic's attempts to incite the Croatian people failed. They didn't listen to him. Pavelić operated outside Yugoslavia because he feared entering the country. If he were caught, he would certainly be executed. In Italy, right next to Yugoslavia, he formed an exiled extremist force. They were all radicals. He named this group the Ustaše. In history, they are also known as Croatian fascists, because they were allied with the founder of fascist ideology, Benito Mussolini. Ante Pavelić used this extremist group to carry out terrorist attacks inside Yugoslavia. Bombings, assassinations, kidnappings, and anti-government propaganda. After these attacks, King Alexander I sent Pavelić an indirect message: with this violence, you can't achieve anything. If you want change, you must kill me, and you can't do that. But just weeks later, he did, and the king was assassinated by the Ustaše. The king's assassination did not destabilize the government. There was a successor, and the state remained stable. Time passed, until 1941. Germany occupied Yugoslavia. Now the country fell into the hands of Nazi Germany. Ante Pavelić was thrilled. He said, "Finally, a foreign power has come to uproot Yugoslavia." As mentioned before, Pavelić had close ties with Mussolini, and Mussolini was allied with Hitler. So the Nazis installed Pavelić as the leader of independent Croatia. He had achieved his dream. He even took photos with Hitler. The moment he gained full power, he declared, "Now it's time to purify Croatia, and eliminate anyone who is not Croatian." Across independent Croatia, forced labor camps were established. His agents hunted down non-Croats, sent them to these camps, and ultimately killed them. Over 4 years, these camps remained active. 400,000 Serbs were sent to them and killed in various ways. But in 1945, Nazi Germany was defeated. The Soviets occupied Yugoslavia. Pavelić abandoned Croatia and fled to Spain. There, General Franco granted him asylum. Unlike other Eastern European countries, Yugoslavia was not fully controllable by the Soviets. After years of internal conflict, Marshal Tito reunified the country and established his own communist ideology, completely different from the Soviet model. For the final evil human, we go to Colombia. A place where a human demon lived named Luis Garavito. His crimes began at the age of 15. In 1972, Luis was born into a family where he was beaten by his father, and sexually abused by that same father. Imagine growing up in such a family. He started drinking alcohol at the age of 7. By 15, he was a full-blown alcoholic. This 15-year-old began abusing other children. He repeated exactly what his father had done to him: beatings and sexual assault. Eventually, he realized that homeless children were easier targets, and in Colombia, there was no shortage of them. He lured children who sold things on the streets or cleaned car windows, took them to isolated places, and assaulted them. If they resisted, He beat them. Later, fear began to grow inside him that he thought, what if I get caught? Any of these children could expose me. From that point on, he decided to kill the children after assaulting them. As time went on, he became even more monstrous. He tortured the children, killed them, and didn't stop there. He stabbed their bodies dozens of times, dismembered them, and sometimes burned them. In 1998, one grave he had dug to hide a child's body was discovered. Because he was an alcoholic and lacked clear thinking, he made a fatal mistake that he had thrown his bloody clothes into the grave as well. When the grave was opened, the police found the clothes and quickly identified the owner. Luis Garavito was arrested. There is footage of him crying uncontrollably, confessing that he raped and murdered hundreds of children. His confessions led to the discovery of 221 murdered children across western Colombia. It is believed the real number was much higher. These were only the ones he remembered. Colombia does not have the death penalty. So instead, he was sentenced to 1,853 years in prison. But of course, no human can serve that long. After 23 years in prison, at the age of 66, he died behind bars. If we look at these stories together, one question slowly takes shape. Were these people born as monsters, or were they created? History shows us something disturbing. Evil does not always come from chaos. Sometimes it comes from order, from governments, from ideologies, from systems that reward obedience without morality. Vasily Blokhin was not a madman on the streets. He was a loyal employee. He followed orders, and for that, he was promoted. Ante Pavelić did not act alone. He was supported, protected, given power by larger forces that shared his hatred. And Luis Garavito was not created by politics. He was shaped by abuse, neglect, and silence. By a society that failed to protect its weakest. These stories remind us of one uncomfortable truth: evil does not always announce itself. It often wears uniforms, titles, and excuses, and it survives when people stop questioning, stop resisting, and stop caring. History does not repeat itself exactly, but human nature does, and as long as power exists without accountability, and pain exists without justice, monsters will continue to be born, not in the shadows, but right in front of us.